Hi, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Cool, me too. So you have this crazy statistics, like 17 months, 530,000 organic traffic per month, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. That's crazy. And that's not just the first time. It's like 4 projects that are doing like this kind of crazy volume.
Yeah, I actually started doing SEO 3 years ago, and since then I've taken 4 projects from 0 to over 100,000 organics a month, generally in about a year for each project. And the fastest hit 100K a month in like 8 months, and the biggest is now doing 500K plus.
Cool. I have a lot to learn because I think I've been at the company I work for now for about 8 months, and we didn't go to that much. We didn't get 100K volume yet. I think the thing that most interests me, like normally you see people talk about going from 20 to 100K or 20K to like 1 million. And then I think, wow, but you already had 20K. Like that's kind of the hard part of the journey for me. So it's really interesting to hear you going from 0 to 100K.
Yeah, the same framework that brings me from 0 to 20K is the framework that brings me from 20 to 500K. So it's all very scalable. And the best part is that we're able to create that growth without building backlinks or doing technical BS, which is a very empowering place to do SEO from, because it means that the outcome is completely within your control and you're not praying to the Google gods every day and every update.
So what is it that you do? What are the key components to this? So I guess a lot of people know, like, yeah, you blog, you hit keywords, and hopefully you rank. But what's the strategy?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very intuitive once I actually say, what it is and how it works. So, it's 2021 and Google is the most sophisticated big data company in the world. And not only are they the most sophisticated big data company in the world, but they also own Google Analytics, Android, and Chrome. And this gives them access to data that no other search provider has access to, which is user engagement metrics and how users behave on the search result page and once they end up on the site. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, wouldn't the best way to measure whether one piece of content adds more value than another piece of content is by how users behave, bounce rate, time on site, return visits, mm-hmm. And so our strategy is predicated that Google isn't using backlinks, it's using user engagement metrics. And what we do is we set out to create the highest quality page of content, the page that adds more reader value than any other page Google could show. And then we do that at scale.
Okay. I love that. I have so many questions. I think before we talk about how you scale those things, maybe talk about what those things are. Like, how do you design a piece of content to keep people there longer? Another question I have is, how do you write great content? Maybe if you're not like a subject matter expert, especially at scale, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think, one of the great parts about SEO and one of the not so great parts about being a user of Google search is you don't have to be an expert to create rankable content. When I'm wondering how to create better content than any other page Google could show, the first place I'm looking is the first page of the keyword I want to rank for, because the results there tell me a lot. They tell me whether I need to rank, whether Google prefers a blog post or a homepage or a category page or a product page. When you Google Greek restaurants in London, you don't get individual restaurants of Greek websites. You get Yelp, you get TripAdvisor, Eat24, you get aggregators. Yeah. And, if you think about it, wouldn't it make sense that Google would show aggregators if, people want to see a lot of options? And then, the second thing is just reading all the top 10 search results and identifying areas where one piece of content has this, but it doesn't have that. And so you're basically, when you're doing research, you're just summarizing the top 10 articles, but maybe you're being more comprehensive. If you want to go deeper, maybe part of your research process is, you go and look on Reddit or Hacker News or Hacker Noon or Growth Hacker or wherever for some really expert content that's well written but just doesn't rank. And so you integrate that into what you end up writing. But it's not, I think this is very accessible to anyone. If you're in marketing, you should be able to read a piece of content or a lot of pieces of content, understand what's missing.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. So what is the first step you do when you start working with someone and you say, okay, you've got 0 traffic right now. We're going to get you to 100K or 500K in the next 2 years. Where do you start?
That's a great question. I want to wrap up. I want to say one more thing on what you asked.
Sure.
You know, one of the easiest frameworks for developing better content than someone else is just doing more of it. So more words, more H2s, more pictures, more internal links, more external links, more videos, more tables, more lists, more bullet points.
Yeah.
You know, those are all things that you can do very easily to increase the user engagement, right? The more internal links, the more likely they are to visit another page. The more H2s and the more content, the more likely they are to spend more time on the page, etc.
That's definitely something I've found doing SEO content myself, that like the volume of the words matters like so much more than links.
One of the easiest things you can do when you're competing against stronger competitors is write more words than them, because it naturally will keep users on the page longer and there's more opportunities to send them elsewhere.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I didn't know the link necessarily between volume and why they ranked it better, because sometimes you have a load of rubbish content. It's not exactly fulfilling.
You know, and there's a scale, right? The more authoritative you are, the more powerful your brand is, the easier it is to rank without doing best practices. But if you're approaching, you know, from a place of just starting out, you have to do more best practices than the people that you're competing against. And if you implement best practices and they don't, you can overcome, like you can rank above people with way more backlinks and way more higher DR and authority.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to that.
Going back to the very first thing you want to understand is, you know, what opportunity does search represent? And I think one of the problems that the industry has is being able to understand, you know, what does my funnel look like? How many pages of content do I need to create to be everywhere my audience is searching across the funnel? You know, when it comes to SaaS, you don't oftentimes have to rank at the bottom of the funnel. If I'm doing, you know, research because I want to capture email addresses on my website and I'm looking for examples of great CTAs, you know, I'm only going to evaluate 3 or 4 pop-up companies. And the companies that service me the information that I need to implement the campaign I want to implement are going to be at the top of the list of companies I need to consider. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, people think SEO is ranking for a handful of keywords at the bottom of the funnel. But really, SEO is about being everywhere your audience is searching and touching them multiple times and getting them on one page and bring them to other areas on the website. So you need to understand what your funnel looks like. What's the kind of an industry that you're interested in?
If we can do me,
Sure.
company, yeah, then what about customer service?
That's a great one.
It's difficult because it comes up with Amazon customer service.
Yeah, let's do a product that's like analytics, or it's targeted towards early stage SaaS founders, like Barometrics or something like that. Okay. Like it's an analytics product for SaaS.
Okay.
Can I share my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say we make a product. Let's say, you know, we process credit cards or we report on SaaS metrics or something. You know, the first thing we want to understand is how SaaS founders are searching across the funnel. Now, there's a lot of opportunities to reach, you know, our target audience, but we're going to go super broad and we're going to start with SaaS. So we're going to get like things like what is SaaS and SaaS meaning and SaaS software and SaaS examples. This might be two top of the funnel. You can tell a lot by what people search. Yeah. Someone who's searching is what is SaaS is probably not a SaaS founder. But here we can use the include keyword on Ahrefs to start narrowing down our list. So we can do things like metrics, marketing, emails, analytics, reporting, analysis. And so, you know, we could do things like content and SEO and Facebook and ads, PPC.
This will essentially anything that includes the word SaaS and those keywords.
That's correct, yeah. And now we have a bunch of things like SaaS marketing strategy, B2B SaaS marketing, SaaS SEO, SaaS marketing, SaaS metrics. Mm-hmm. Now here's where SEO breaks down today. We have 2,500 keywords that our target audience is searching for, representing about 6,000 searches a month.
Cool.
What happens after this is very ambiguous. How many pages of content do we need to create to rank for all of the ways that people are searching across this funnel? How much is that going to cost? What keywords do we put on each page? And so we build a tool to automate this. We basically eliminate and minimize SEO skills. You just need to have a strong vocabulary and be able to put in, synonyms and things like that. So our work here is actually done. Our work was finished as soon as we typed in our last keyword. We're going to export this list of 2,500 keywords. And what we get back is a detailed analysis on every page of content that we need to create to be everywhere audience is searching. We get the main keyword and we get all of the variations of the main keyword. And then we also get the total search volume that each page can capture. And now we can begin to start doing an ROI analysis. Let's say 30 pages represent 6,000 searches a month. It costs me $300 per page. Of those 6,000 searches a month, I can capture 10% if I rank in position number 5. Of those 10% that land on my website, I can convert this many into a sales conversation and close this many. And now you can start to forecast what your SEO outcomes look like before you make the investment. So let's go down to, let's say SaaS marketing, but I think it might actually be a different one. Metrics. So I already ran this grouping, and here's what the deliverable looks like.
And it brings all those keywords together and helps you decide.
So here's what we get. SaaS metrics is a different page than SaaS marketing, which is a different page than SaaS revenue recognition. Here's where it gets tricky. Google considers things unique searches that aren't intuitive if you're manually deciding what keywords can rank together. For example, if I was a content writer and I was writing about SaaS metrics, I would think that SaaS analytics would be a variation of SaaS metrics. But what this report is indicating is that SaaS analytics is its own separate article.
How is the AI kind of deciding on that? Is it looking through the top search results for those things and realizing it's coming up with different content, basically?
So the way it works is it's algorithmically, provable to do correct SEO research. So how do you know if you can rank for SaaS metrics and SaaS marketing with one page of content? Or you need to create 2 pages to rank for both keywords? Well, it's simple. You look at the results and comment. How many web pages rank for both SaaS metrics and SaaS marketing? If 5 of the website, 5 websites, 5 web pages rank for both keywords with one page, we can definitely rank for both keywords with one page. But if nobody's ranking for both SaaS metrics and SaaS marketing, we probably can't rank for both keywords with one page, and we should write 2 pages. So every single variation has at least 3 results in common with the main keyword. And each main keyword has 2 or less results in common with every other main keyword. If you grab any main keyword, SaaS, MER SaaS and ARR SaaS, there's less than 2 websites ranking for both with one page.
Okay, nice. And with these variations, how does that factor in? Do you need to address all of those specifically to pick them up, or do you go for SaaS metrics and they'll pick up automatically?
Great question. So there's hundreds of variations here. What you do is you set the main keyword to things like your URL. So our URL would be SaaS metrics. We would include the main keyword, SaaS metrics, in our H1, our meta title, and our meta description. In the H2s and in the content, we would use all these variations. Now, in the content, instead of saying SaaS metrics, we'll call it key SaaS metrics. Here are the key SaaS metrics. And then the next time we'll mention metrics for ramping up SaaS revenue. And here are the best SaaS to track customer metrics. And here are SaaS operational metrics, which are different than marketing operational metrics. And so after you do this, you just create the best piece of content possible. But when you can, you just integrate variations into the content.
Cool. And so basically this has turned 3,000 keywords into, okay, you can get all of that if you do, how many pages is it?
I mean, there's a really long tail where each keyword is just its own page. But, the top, let's say
These are all zeros.
30 pages, represent about 99% or 95% of the search volume. So now you don't even need to know SEO to be able to do keyword research that's world class. It's a complete game changer. It really levels the playing field. And for us as an agency, we don't have to hire SEOs. Like, I have a content manager running keyword research. It increases consistency, it reduces training time, QA, documentation, etc. So the next thing you do is you pop in the numbers here. So let's say, our total addressable monthly search volume from the pages that we want to target is 100,000. Position number 5 captures 10% of the searches. Our conversion rate is, 2%. Our AOV is 1,000. Our LTV is 5,000. And now you can begin to map various scenarios. What does a poor outcome look like? In the worst case scenario, if we do a terrible job, can we make the money back? And then what does a great outcome look like? That's the first thing you do.
How do you, so if I'm thinking like if you're a big SaaS, if your target companies are like kind of enterprise level, you have like really big order value and you're not pushing people to like free trial signups, you're pushing people to like book demos.
You would have a slightly different calculator. You would just add a cell to calculate, in conversion rate, this might be 2% convert to lead, and then of leads, 10% convert to close or whatever.
Yeah, okay. And you as an agency, who are the customers that you've done it for so far? Like what kind of industry are they in?
The strategy seems to be industry agnostic. We've done it for a dog site in the pet space. We've done it for a SaaS education company, reviewing universities. We've done it for a startup backed by Andreessen Horowitz and Peter Thiel. And then we did it for a marketing agency.
And you'll work systematically through those kind of keyword lists and just build up the traffic like that.
Yeah, so let's do some math here. This is a pretty small keyword list that we looked at, but let's see if we can find like a bigger one, like email marketing. So the biggest bottlenecks in organic search, there's 2 of them. The first is how long content sits on your content calendar for. If you're an email marketing company, a lot of these keywords are relevant and being searched by your target audience. When you do the export, not everything's going to be relevant and you can just delete it. But in general, a lot of them should be. Mm-hmm. And let's say that you discover 500 opportunities to get in front of your target audience. You need to create 500 pieces of content. Well, if you're publishing 10 pages of content per month, it's going to take you 4 years to be where your audience already is. So publishing velocity is the first bottleneck you need to overcome. Instead of publishing 4 years of content in 4 years, if you publish it in 6 months, by month 18, all of that content will be mature in ranking, which leads me to my second biggest bottleneck is how long things take to rank after you publish it. In that original 4-year scenario, it actually takes 5 years to rank because the content you publish in the last 6 months or whatever still takes another 6 months to rank. So the faster you publish, the sooner you can rank for the opportunities that'll drive qualified traffic. So, I've taken 4 projects from 0 to 100K. I've also had a lot of really bad projects. And the difference between the bad projects and the good projects is publishing velocity. In this one, we grew from, 775 visitors a month to 1,700. 93% growth. Woo! It took us a year. But we only published 12 pages of content. But when you look at this graph, we're publishing hundreds of pages a month. The thing that all the good projects have in common isn't backlink profile, it's not DR, it's not a particular industry, it's how fast did we get content out the door. Mm-hmm. And I think this graph really drives it home. This is an analysis of all the top players in the dog niche. And we have the estimated traffic, we have the domain rating, and we have the number of pages. And then the most important column, we have an efficiency score, how much traffic each page generates per month. And what you'll see is that there's no one who's generating 80% of the traffic with 20% of the content. There's a very narrow band of efficiency of about 170 to 872 visitors per month per page.
It's an amazing concept. I'm thinking, I've just tried to hire freelancers and it's really hard to get them to write really good quality content, especially quickly. How do you overcome that? How do you scale doing this quickly?
We start off with freelancers. freelancers will flake you and they'll just completely miss whatever deadlines you set. They're less willing to learn. And, like you said, if you can speak English, it doesn't mean you can write it. Writing's a whole career, like being a developer. Even I feel like I'm a good writer. I couldn't do it as a career. Just it's very difficult to do consistently day in and day out for, long periods of time. Really, the secret for us hiring writers is quantity. The more writers you can put in your hiring funnel, the better chance you're going to find someone who's good and meets your budget. It's literally nothing but quantity. And so you want to build a system that allows you to very easily review a lot of candidates. We built that system for free using Airtable. We're going to be releasing the whole process pretty soon. Cool. And we've used it to evaluate 1,000 candidates in the last 12 months.
What's your kind of quick breakdown of that? How do you do that? Because that's been a big problem for me. I'm starting to feel like there's a big gap in the market for a freelancer who does stuff on time and does stuff good. What's your method?
Use Airtable. Basically, you just need to build think of a sales CRM, but it's for candidates that you're talking to. I can show you right now, and we can go over a brief high level. Okay, so it is team. Here we go. All right. So basically, Airtable is like Google Sheets on steroids. There's a couple of things that are different. The first is that each column is a piece of structured data. So Google Sheets, you can put anything in any column. This one, you create specific columns. So for example, in this column, we track what role the candidate is applying for. In this one, we track the status of the candidate. In this one, you can only put your email in. In this one, when the record was last updated, the portfolio, the country, the blah, 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 blah. The second major difference is you can very easily group pieces of data that are similar. So when I update the status of a candidate from candidate to application rejected, they'll move into this group down here. Application rejected.
Quickly interrupt. Are you advertising these roles on your website, or are you going to freelance websites or Facebook, or how are you filling that funnel at the top?
It's a multi-pronged approach. I think the best place to start is in expat and nomad groups for low cost of living countries. You can find great people who, for whatever reason, they haven't been able to grow their business and they just don't make very much money, and you can offer them a very good alternative to their consulting shop.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. So essentially, when you come up with a new project, when you want to scale quite quickly, how do you approach it? So you do your keyword research, and then do you just start distributing out work to freelancers quite quickly and scaling up the front loading that content creation? Yeah,
so I think you can get to about 10 to 20 pages a month with freelancers. Like I said earlier, freelancers are going to ghost you. And so in order to minimize impacted deadlines, what we did was we only gave each freelancer one article per week. So that means to deliver about 10 a month, you need about 2 to 3 freelancers to do that. To scale to 20, you need about 4 to 6. Okay. Once you get to here, it makes sense to start bringing people in-house. And so what I did was, once I had begun working with freelancers, I just interviewed them all and see who wanted to be my editor. And that person that I chose is now my director of operations. She went from editor to content manager to project manager, director of operations, and hopefully she'll be in a COO role.
I mean, you found something that worked so well in-house that you've created a whole product for it.
Yeah, the response has been fantastic, which means a lot because I spent a year trying to bring it to market.
Nice. Is that going to be your main focus in the future, do you think, building up that? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I'm a SaaS guy. I've only been in services and consulting for about 3 years. I'm from Seattle, and if you get a degree in geology, you work in tech. If you drop out of college, you work in tech. It's very hard to not land up in tech when you're from Seattle, and this feels really good returning to my roots.
Okay, cool. Nice. I have actually downloaded it before, so I'm gonna pick it back up and have another dig around, because it does it's such a useful tool actually. Because I did struggle, because I'm in the customer service space. I did struggle with the fact that everything in customer service is not my customer searching for the customer service department at a company like Amazon. How do you kind of get rid of that noise if you come across that problem?
Yeah. So the first biggest opportunity you have is brand jack all your competitors and all of your indirect competitors. So direct competitors is easy, but indirect competitors, it doesn't even, and I'd expand it to complementary software. So what other software is people using in conjunction with yours? And when someone's searching, for example, competitor X versus competitor Y, that's a great place for you to insert yourself in the conversation. We'll be like, actually, neither of them is the perfect solution for you. We are. When someone's searching for competitor X reviews, these guys are great. They changed the industry, but now they're legacy, and we're the new kids on the block, and it's good, good for you. Indirect competitors or complementary software, when someone's searching for pricing information or a review or whatever, if they're using this software and they're highly likely to use yours, you want to be the person giving them that information. So that's an easy place to start. And usually there's about 4 types of content that Google considers unique for each brand. One is brand reviews, Microsoft Office 365 reviews. The second one is pricing, Zendesk pricing. It's possible to outrank Zendesk for that search term. The third is Zendesk versus X.
You think it's possible?
Sorry, what's that?
You think it's possible to outrank Zendesk for Zendesk pricing?
I know it's possible. I've seen other brands too.
Okay, cool. I'm going to do that. I mean, Zendesk is our #1 partner ecosystem, so we're going to go for that. Cool. Okay. What did you say? So reviews, pricing,
versus.
Yeah, versus.
So X versus Y, and then alternatives. People will also search for Zendesk alternatives. Now, I wouldn't create all 5 articles for every brand. The bigger the brand, the more likely there is for you to need 5 articles. For small brands, you might be able to rank for all the keywords with just 1 page on reviews, pricing, alternatives versus etc.
There's a one keyword that people type in, which is Zendesk integrations, which is what we are, and Zapier has bought the domain name Zendesk integrations and just redirected it to Zapier. So if it ranks #1 on Google with Zendesk integrations.
I love that. That's very clever. Zendesk integrations. I hope to meet the SEO of Zapier one day.
But they haven't got Zendesk integration without the s.com, which may be my next purchase.
So I would say your best bet for competing for this keyword is you want to do something like ring over 12 best integrations. You're not going to be able to outrank Zendesk because it goes back to user intent. Zapier is going to be tough. Zapier is going to be really tough because Zapier has a lot of integrations. It goes back to do people want to see a single site or do people want to see a lot? And Google has determined that this one people want to see a lot because first it goes Zapier, all of the Zendesk integrations, then automate all of the Zendesk integrations, and then ring over top 12. And then Monday, it's a single one.
Do you think there's any value in say, creating ZendeskIntegration.com, but then creating, say, not a fake marketplace, but just 100 Zendesk integrations, first front page kind of thing?
Yeah, I think there is value, but I would develop fundamentals in the framework first. It sounds like pretty hacky to me. It's a wild goose chase potentially if you don't already have the fundamentals.
I've seen a few different frameworks people use to get freelancers, I guess, to write the right content. When you work with a freelancer, do you specify this is the H1, the H2? Do you go really into that? How structured are you with them?
Well, we give them the framework for how they need to conduct research. Check all the first page search results, make it more comprehensive. The more upfront work you do, the more consistent output you'll get. And when you're creating one piece of content, it's a lot of work to do all the due diligence up front for the writer to create consistency. But when you're creating 50 pages about SaaS metrics, now your time starts to get multiplied, and any effort you put in up front is multiplied across those 50 articles. So it's always more helpful to write one, completely saturate a topic because you can just spread over the upfront work you put across against multiple deliverables. And to continue the answer to your question, I want to compile the best resources. I want to go find the things that aren't on Google and bring some real thought leadership into the content. If it's something that I'm an expert in, and it's really important to me to have that thought leadership in the content, then I'll record a video to use for the writer to use as source material. I'm going out and I'm looking for the best pieces of content about this topic, whether it ranks or not, because that's the minimum quality standard that I need the writer to hit. It's also a great place to find reference information and opinions and things like that. So I think everything is very process driven. How do you create a consistent outcome across hundreds or thousands of pieces of content? well, everything's documented. You can hold people accountable to following processes.
So one of the ways you do it is to take the top 10 pages and compile them and make them like a better overall resource.
Yeah.
But you would specify to the freelancer, these are the best, like these are really good, these ones. Like do something like that.
I wouldn't even tell them these are the ones that are good. I'll say search in Google, right click, open new tab, get all the H2s, make it more comprehensive.
Okay, cool. One thing you said just before as well about avoiding the hack stuff too early on. What are the fundamentals that you need to get in place? When you say that, what do you mean specifically? Is it that stuff that we just went through?
Yeah, I would say the fundamentals are, creating content that's better than anything else on the first page. The second is recruiting writers to create content. The third is, creating documentation to deliver repeatable, consistent, deliverable, outcome.
Okay. And when you get those in place, you hit all your target, hit your high traffic volume and conversions and get that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can't scale before you have a system and it's documented, because you'll hit too many edge cases. Anything that's not documented needs to be repeated again and again and again to each person. How do you hold someone accountable to something you told them 3 months ago if it's not written down? How do you change your process if it's not written down? And then you also just create a lot of anxiety for both parties when someone needs information from someone else. And the person being blocked is anxious because they just want to do their job, and the person who's blocking them is anxious because they just also want the person to do their job. So documentation is critical.
I had questions about like how do you streamline, how do you scale, and a lot of it is just getting that process in place, like having very clear expectations, documentation, doing the research, and then hiring the right people.
Yeah, it's all iteration. Like you just naturally, this makes totally sense. It gets pretty cool though.
Yeah.
Can I show you how cool it gets?
Yeah, please do.
All right, so check this out. You're gonna love this. Okay, so the next thing that we do after we do the ROI calculator and what indicates that it's a good fit to pursue is, like, we manage our recruiting, we also manage our content in Airtable. And basically we have like the main keyword, we have the volume, we have the variations, the project, the article link to the Google Doc, and a whole bunch of meta information that we'll need to make the content go live, like URL, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm going to go here and do is I'm going to go, and let's say we want to write the top 10 articles. I'm going to copy it into here. And when I assign this project, I have a Zap that automatically creates a Google Doc. And in the Google Doc is what the writer needs to get set up for success.
And it would just populate that.
Yeah, let me reshare. So it'll have about the project, everything that the writer needs to understand who the client is or the company, technical guidelines, that's things like H2s and stuff, image sourcing, and they'll have this chart down here that they'll fill out that says they met the technical requirements. And then if we brought in the main keywords, like we did for this one, it'll actually put in the variations from Cluster AI. So then the writer writes directly in here, and then we can modify the status of the content. If we look at Soxy, like every time we move the status, it'll jump from group to grouping.
Oh, cool.
And so we have whether we paid the freelancer, we have the live URL, we have the variations, the meta title, the meta description, the featured image, the upload date, who the uploader is, and there's multiple views. So the uploader has a special view. They only get what they need to upload. The designer has a special view. The editor has a special view. And you can basically very quickly like manipulate and reorganize data.
Nice. And then you can scale production.
You don't need that in the beginning. You just need a Google Sheet.
Do you do any like distribution? I know your company's called content distribution, but do you do distribution beyond SEO? Is it mainly write and leave?
Yeah, you don't have to do anything for the content to rank.
Cool. There's so many. It's such a different like strategy, I suppose. It's because a lot of people will talk about, doing 20% content creation, 80% distribution. That's all everyone says, like on LinkedIn and things like that. But I guess it's because it's SEO focused. It's not so much like that's your distribution channel.
I think one of the hardest things any company will ever have in terms of marketing is creating a system to continually redistribute previously published content. Mm-hmm. Most companies can't do it. The only way they can do it is through SEO. It's very, very difficult to continually re-promote old content. I've worked with clients that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on thought leadership from their VPs that no one read once the initial push because they just don't have any systems.
Mm-hmm.
SEO is the easiest way to get, an evergreen audience again and again and again.
It seems it's like a no-brainer for me as well. It's like just completely passive content, and you can go back and update it, but it's just going. I think a lot of people are worried about how long it takes and that we need to get results now. Do you design the content to convert? Like, do you create the content so it like pushes towards the goals of the business?
Yeah, the whole strategy is predicated on better user engagement metrics than the competition. So things like taking user to another page or getting them to give an email or getting them to sign up all drive better user engagement metrics. And so
do you do a lot of interlinking articles and things like that?
Yeah. Basically internal links act like what people think backlinks do. The more internal links you have, it tells Google the more important the page is to your brand and the easier it is to rank. It'll be a lot easier for a brand that's dedicated to one particular subject to rank than for, HubSpot to rank if it's one of 1,000 topics to cover.
Because they can interlink so well and create like a resource.
Yeah.
So that it's like Google notices the interlinks as okay, they know a lot about this subject because they're interlinking to other stuff they've written.
Yeah, I think it's a vote that the page is more important to your brand than other pages. And so Google, if it's more important to your brand, I think Google would rather show it than a page that's not very important at all to a bigger brand.
Yeah. Okay. So do you do that strategically? There's some pages you would like not link to so much, or is it just a link where you can?
Anything we want to rank, we'll link to, but there's also content that is about things that we'll never rank, and we still want to, draw people to that. So for example, I worked on like if someone enters at middle or top of the funnel, maybe the first internal link that they see should be to your case study.
So you define all these keywords and you put them all into a funnel stage.
Well, more like any page of content. I'll say, regardless of what page of content someone lands on, I want them to go to this other page. And so that'll be the first place I internal link. Maybe if someone's reading an article about Zendesk alternatives and you wrote a top 10, here are top 10 other, alternatives you could choose. And the first link they see is these guys save 75% by switching away from Zendesk. You still fulfill the intent of the article, and people who don't care about it can skip it, but the people that are ready to convert can move themselves across the funnel.
Yeah. Nice, cool. Maybe it's like a last question. Is there like a typical counter argument to like this way of doing things that you come across that you disagree with? Or are there people that disagree with this way of doing things?
I think what I just said, if you're not in SEO, it sounds intuitive, but if you're in SEO, it's very controversial. People are still hung up on this like super technical stuff and like this backlinks. And really, I think it's because the biggest influencers in the space make SEO sound very complicated. I think the other part is that a lot of people giving advice don't have a track record that the person asking the question is looking to achieve. So you have a bunch of like the blind leading the blind and a bunch of people who've never done anything giving advice. The third thing that makes SEO so hard to learn is learning requires, implementation and feedback. And the timeline is very long between those two things for SEO. And so it can be hard to understand and connect the dots between action and.
Yeah, my number one thing would be like, is there any point to having 500,000 traffic a month if that traffic is coming from places that is not extremely relevant, or they're not going to like fulfill those like building your brand awareness or converting to customers or that kind of thing? That's the only one of the things. It's not blindly going after it, traffic.
I would say it's a journey and it's personal. So I was just writing another case study last night for my first project that went from 0 to 100,000 organics a month. And the fundamentals that I use there are still the fundamentals that I use today. But we targeted an audience that we didn't have an offer that was appealing to. And the ultimate impact of the content was it wasn't impactful. And a lot of people will ask me, how about the conversions? And I feel like what they're saying, they're vanity metrics. But really it comes down to the offer. I have some very, very, very successful and lucrative SEO projects, and I have some that are less successful. And it's not because we didn't rank for the things that we wanted to rank for. It's because once they're on the page, the CTA was get 6 softwares, which isn't even English. I can't do much with that CTA. Even if you don't get the conversions on the first iteration, if you get the traffic and develop the framework, then you can apply that in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having that traffic is powerful anyway, and then you need to optimize. If you realize nothing's happening from it, you need to start optimizing.
You can iterate. Like, there's no one does the perfect campaign from the beginning, but you test, you implement, you learn, you iterate, and you get better.
Cool. Yeah, perfect. Maybe that's a good place to end.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been amazing. It's perfect. This is the perfect timing for me, actually, just to get some more motivation to kick off SEO stuff even more. So
it's tough. The last piece of advice is find a lot of writers and then promote the best one to editors so you can do the marketing that you're most passionate about. Because even I don't love reading content all day.
yeah, thank you very much.